We're ready, City Clerk.
Okay, as Madam Chair, gonna call the meeting to order.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, call Seldovia City Council work session, Monday, the 14th. I was trying to see what the time was because I can't see that. And I don't know. Anyway, 4:40. Okay. March 14th, 2022 at 4:40. Discussion topics. Number 1, draft review land management plan, better known as LUMP. Rachel, do you want to start?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to turn the floor over to our City Clerk, who pulled off an amazing feat of working with both council members Rojas and Sweat to compile the first ever land use management plan, as Councilmember Sweat said, LUMP. And she can go over the components that are before you, including public comment. Take it away, City Clerk Gagel.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So hopefully before you have a copy of the land use management plan. It was provided online, and a binder was provided in council chambers. We only printed one because it is 190 pages, but it can be provided to anybody who needs it after the meeting, or preferably once there's more of a final draft, then we can print copies. But this is our first review as the council as a whole, so that changes that come about after this review can be made and brought back either to another work session or with a resolution to adopt the plan, depending on how far we get today. Also is a packet with a memorandum from myself that just gives a summary of the overall process, that there are 74 municipal properties. The plan is separated in 4 sections: introduction and overview, maps, easements, and leases. But I'll screen share the plan here in just a minute, and we'll go through each piece. There's some notes in the memo, that are more specific for discussion. But of course, anything and everything is open for discussion and comment. Any changes, any additions. This is a plan we want to work for everybody, that we can just open it up. If you have any questions or need to know anything about a particular parcel, it should be in the plan. That's the goal, overall goal. And as stated in the memo, just that, land, real property is a critical public asset that the Seldovia City Council and staff have the fiduciary duty to manage in the best interest of our citizens. And the intent of this plan is to assist the city in future planning efforts in order to maximize the best and highest use and value of these assets. So I'm going to pull it up here so we can see it. Okay, and hopefully everybody can see that. And I'll just start with some of the overall considerations in the memo, and just things that were noticed and or affirmed during the development of the plan, which of course spanned over 6 months. I want to say, gosh, it was closer to 8 months, with just the data collection, deeds, background information, history. There's still just 3 parcels that don't have the deeds included, and you'll see those as we go through them, that are from quite a while ago, some of the oldest properties in town. So that those still need to be sussed out. But overall, we have, I hope, a pretty good view of what the city owns, that history of why, and now with this meeting, we'll have more of a map of where the city wants to go in the future. So overall considerations for the future, there was, when I was going through the history through DNR and through city records, I just wanted to point out that there was the city had a lot of properties, has had a lot of properties over the years that they have received either through foreclosure or whether different methods that they were acquired and has sold a lot of property. So it's not like the city has been sitting on large amounts of property without them being able to be used to their best potential or offered to the public to be developed. There's definitely a lot of examples of the city doing that, acquiring and then disposing of property in the past. Secondly, a few of those properties that were disposed of by the city in recent history did include a development clause, and 2 of those properties actually reverted back to the city just in the last 2 decades because the purchaser did not meet the conditions of the deed. The development requirement was not met. So those are in the plan. Other things that were noted was, of course, both the boat storage yards are in need of better management, and that's something that I believe staff's working on internally. And that includes electric cleanup, just overall management of those lots. Waterfront lots including the industrial value added building lot and AMHS staging area are in need of better management. Cleanup and overall presentation should be considered for the industrial value added building, something that's come up in discussion. And it could be beneficial for the city to advertise available services provided by the boat storage yards and RV park to garner more interest for use in the future. So, more people that want to store boats, more people that want to camp. Additionally, it might be worth exploring outside management opportunities for both areas as possible business ventures. So to an outside entity that has been mentioned. These are all ideas that just have come up and we want to keep track of during our discussions. Then it could be beneficial to implement a city park management plan. And I was just thinking about this weekend. We didn't include anything about Rocky Ridge Trail, which the city has the easement for. There are other trails and accesses around the city. So that might be something just to consider in the future if there is a park management or, a more of a substantial plan to include those pieces. And it could be beneficial to look at consolidating city facilities and operations as a long-term goal. Water and sewer access is limited for some of the properties recommended for disposal. And you'll see in this plan, we'll talk about it a little more as we get there, what that means for water and sewer. It is recommended that land sales be considered through a sealed competitive bid process. And an updated evaluation of the city's current wastewater treatment system is needed to assess at minimum what upgrades are necessary, including the potential for a wastewater treatment facility or a 5-acre parcel for a lagoon for wastewater treatment. This may impact city properties in the future or require the city to acquire private properties to develop the lagoon. So with that in mind, we can start our perusal of this plan. Does anybody have any questions so far over just overall? We're going to go through this plan kind of page by page, but those are the overall thoughts that came out of this process. Any questions on those, the general ideas that came out from it?
Councilmember Speck, I have one question I have one question.
Go ahead.
Do we have an electronic copy of this in our in basket? The lump plan, the draft ID?
Yes, so that was emailed to you 2 weeks ago and it's available on the website.
Okay. All right, thank you.
No problem. Hope you let me know if you need any more help finding it.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
Anyone else have any other questions?
I didn't see it.
Anybody on Zoom, Heidi?
I'm not seeing anybody.
Okay, should I ask about the public now or later?
That could be later after we go
Okay.
through the plan, unless somebody has questions as it comes up, because it does look like we have a few people from the audience.
Okay.
Is that our copy over there? That mine? Yeah. We do have one.
You do?
Oh, it got lowered.
Pardon?
No, the hand got lowered.
Okay.
Yeah, Radzi, you're gonna have to run the hands for me because I can't see them both and the screen sharing.
Right.
Okay. So if there isn't any further questions, this is the plan. I hope everybody can see it. I just scrolled through the front page and there's a table of contents. It should very nicely, oh, supposed to take you to the right page, but it looks like, oh, it did. So it should very nicely, if you're at the table of contents, take you to the right page. So anybody who's using it at home, that is an available feature as well as the bookmark. Will help you run through it, and you'll probably see me do this as we go through it. So it's easier to just get from section to section. So just looking at discussion points for overall review of the plan, you'll see we have our 4 sections: introduction, overview, maps, easements and leases, city land by district, and then there are appendixes. There are 6 so far, but as information comes up, we definitely want to be keeping the appendixes in mind, updating them, adding more information, anything that is of value and helping review these properties in the future. Our first section here is introduction and overview, and there's just a short introduction here that talks about the purpose of the plan and that it has been identified as one of the city council's priorities for both 2021 and 2022. When we move into an overview of the municipal properties, there's 74, like I said, and then it talks about each zone and then just kind of an overview of what those properties in that zone are. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but if you guys want me to slow down or stop, I can. I do want to note that under public and city, it says city owns various parks and public areas for the public to enjoy and or access areas of enjoyment. Note the city of Seldovia also manages Mermaid Park, Lollipop Park, and the city park, which are located in platted right-of-ways. So you will not see a map or a page dedicated to those properties in this plan because they're not technically a parcel. They are in a platted right-of-way, each of those parks. In the future, like I said, if we have a park management or a park management component or city public land component, it'd be great to incorporate more about each of these areas that are managed and even trails. I mean, it can expand all different kinds of ways. Hopefully this plan just continues to grow as the city grows. So future considerations and goals. Overall, future considerations regarding city development and property management. As we discussed this plan, I was fortunate to meet with Councilmember Rojas, Councilmember Sweat. Of course, I met with the city manager. I met with Public Works, different members of the staff. And these are just some overall goals that or considerations that came out citywide. Some things to consider when we're considering any piece of infrastructure, any piece of land that the city owns. There are not enough places to push and store snow. We're starting to designate lots or areas as snow push areas. And that's something just to consider when we're talking about a lot. If it is a snow area, then where's the snow going to go? This was a very heavy snow year. And as we saw, we were starting to run out of places to place snow. I don't know about run out, but it definitely, there was a lot of snow to push and move to different areas so that people could continue to use those snow push areas intermittently. But I'll leave that up to the Public Works to talk more about if people have questions about that in the future. Future expansion, roadways, parking and parks, construction of public facilities out of inundation zone, water and sewer requirements, availability, dry storage for Public Works and city. This has come about because we really don't have a lot of dry storage except for the city office building. And then we've started using the industrial building a little bit for storage. And it's really shown that that dry storage is helpful and something, that the city utilizes regularly and should, be in the thoughts of when talking about consolidating or city operations, where is the city going to just store things? Heavy equipment storage. We've got a new grader coming. We have equipment that can fit into the, a lot of the equipment does fit into the maintenance building now, but not all fits in there. And it's located on the lot in front of the industrial building. So if we do something with the industrial building, where does it go? It'll be a deeper conversation in the future, I'm sure, but it's just something to note. That's a consideration. Public-private partnerships to foster affordable housing and economic development initiatives. That's been mentioned in past discussions about the city working with somebody, a developer, or disposing of city land, leasing something to be able to offer affordable housing or development and initiatives in the community. And lastly, it's not on here, but we do need to include it. It kind of came up towards the end of the plan when everything was being published, but there needs to be a consideration for the wastewater as stated before. There an assessment of, just as stated in under the overall considerations, potential for a wastewater treatment plant facility or a 5-acre parcel for a lagoon or wastewater treatment. That really should be on the forefront when considering disposing or acquiring properties. Is what is the plan for the wastewater in the future, or how can we help align with that plan? And of course, that's in a separate topic in the works, but just something to consider with this lump. Goals, some things we talked about that could be goals, and these can change. Any of this can change, as I said again, so please stop me if you have comments or changes. But goals, housing unit development, we talked about just right above that. Public-private partnerships, that kind of, those go kind of hand in hand. Potential lots are those lots beside the city yard that's been discussed. To update the zoning code or rezone the commercial district that's in that area as commercial residential district. And I'll pull up that map real quick when we're done talking about this section, just to show. You'll see in this map, this orange area here is all commercial. And while there isn't a lot of development on this north end of town, there are a few residences here on the more the corner here in the middle of the, or not corner, but in the middle of the town, the corner of the district. There are residences, and so all this orange is commercial, and it was just discussed, maybe that's not in the best interest of the property owners in the city to have it be so restricted when we don't see any commercial development down there. Maybe it would be better suited to have more options with those properties by opening them up for both commercial and residential. I think when the plan was developed, I'd have to look back, but when the zoning was developed and updated in 2006, they were trying to make zones for each area, and that made sense at the time, but it's worth reevaluating to see if it still makes sense now. Reevaluation of the boat storage yard facilities. We already talked about that a little bit, and explore the cost benefit ratio of consolidating city operations, along with an annual review of the 2014 comprehensive plan. Really the question is this a complete picture at this time? Are there items to remove or add? Does it meet your considerations and goals? And just knowing that I'm always taking notes. So even after this meeting, if something comes up and you think of it in the middle of the night, like I do sometimes, just shoot me an email and I've got a running list of things to update, and I will keep that list. I do that for the budget and the fee schedule as well. That way, when this plan is reviewed annually, unless it needs to change beforehand, it'll be included in the next version. Any questions so far? Okay, we'll keep going. I can't see you, so if something comes up, you just have to shout out at me. We just included the land use framework for the 2014 Seldovia Comprehensive Plan in here. It's always a great idea to refer back to the comprehensive plan when we're making any plans or putting together any projects for the future, because this is just a great framework of where the city and the community want to go. Here's the goals in that land use, or not land use, sorry, Seldovia Comprehensive Plan, along with the action items. You'll see that they involve a lot of city infrastructure, like the deep water dock, harbor improvements, boat haul out, the cannery property, Seldovia City Public Safety, new water treatment plant, which thankfully was complete, surface transportation network, and so on and so forth. So those are located in there just as another reminder of, or guideline for where we're headed. Section 2 is maps, and I wanted to note that there is a watershed map in the back of the packet under the appendixes that I will move up here so that all the maps are together, but I don't like how, there we go. So under maps, the Kenai Peninsula Borough map, this is the most recent one off of the borough website, and it just shows the parcels and the outline of the city overall. We have our zoning map, our inundation map, snow removal, water main from 2003. There is a note on here that this map is from 2003 prior to the main replacement in several areas. I did receive last week a map with that just marked areas that have been updated, and it isn't a complete, this is the most complete water main map that we have, the most recent complete one, but we do have a map that shows what repairs were made, and I'm going to add this to this map section. That way you can see not only where it says main replacement needed to be done, but where it has been done. But this just will give the overall picture. So there's a sewer main map, this same thing, 2007, but it's the most recent. And I did reach out to CRW, and these were the most recent they had as well. So that's what we have. And then wetlands is, I'm sure, probably going to be a bigger discussion in the future when we get into the properties, but you will see on this map here that there are several areas in town that can be noted as wetlands, or potentially, I should say, noted as wetlands. This map is from 1978. They did have a updated review of the Kenai Peninsula Borough recently, but Seldovia wasn't included in that review. So the most recent information we have is from 1978. And I had a great conversation with the Army Corps. She gave me information, wetlands are classified as waters of the US and belong to all. Talked to me about the permitting process, that they don't issue permits if there are uplands available. And the reason is the person just doesn't want to use the uplands. You have to have a good enough determination to utilize the wetlands. You have to have a project. But before you can go through that permitting process, you need a jurisdictional determination. So you would reach out to the Army Corps, the city, or any developer in these areas and say, is this wetlands? They can, off of past data or sometimes off of maps, identify if an area is wetlands, but most often they'll come out and review. And they have in the back in the appendix, you'll see there's a few parcels, or sorry, a few maps that have been included that were reviewed and determined as wetlands. Those are up in this area by the city yard, but they're over 5 years old. So if they only last 5 years, they would need to update them. And that's something to keep in mind if we are talking about any of the parcels up here by the storage yard or down here on Frank Raby. Potentially for development, they would need a jurisdictional determination, and then you would have to have a project plan that they could approve. And it's always better to ask ahead of time. That is what she told me. So easements and leases is section 3. We just want to be able to keep track of current available land for lease or sale. You'll see that it even includes the rentals inside the Soldovia space. It's just a great overall way to keep track of everything happening in the city with leases. Even non-exclusive parts of AMHS. Sorry, let me get a drink of water here. And I would like to note that the AMHS does have a non-exclusive agreement to use that lot, or at least a place to park 20 vehicles. But it includes that lot that's next to the fuel loop while they're in dock. And then we have public use easements. This easement list and the next easement list, which is for utility, may not be a complete list. This is everything I could locate off of DNR and through city records. But as things come up, I would love to add to them. That's my goal, is to keep this as up to date as possible. So it just says that the year it was granted, the type of easement, and who it was granted by. Obviously, some of these properties have changed hands. So even though the lot, it might specify a lot with a owner's name, that doesn't mean the easement's gone away just because it's a different owner. And that's just who it was originally granted by. And now getting into the big part. I want to go through section 4 with you. I'm sorry I'm going so quickly. I'm just hoping to get through a lot in a short period of time. And I want to make sure to note below here that while viewing the following property descriptions, that notes pertaining to water and sewer access being available means that there is an accessible main near the property, not that water and sewer connections have been stubbed into the property. Properties that list no water or no sewer access are noted because additional main repair or expansion would be required in order for there to be an accessible main near the property. And that's pretty important to note, because I think that from my review, I could ascertain that a lot of these properties that the city holds are being held or were held because they weren't the easiest to be developed, or because the city had plans, or there are reasons. So you'll note that there's a lot of properties that we're going to discuss that could use help with water and sewer. And we're to the land use overview. This has been used as a guide through the development of the lump. Each property listed has a recommendation to be considered for either development, disposal, or that it has already been dedicated. And that means it's dedicated through code, it's dedicated through deed. There's something that just is saying this property is being used by the city. It won't stay this way. We'll probably have to find a better way to color code, but right now the items in green, you'll note on the bottom of page 36 are, I just wanted to really call these out, means that these properties are restricted and have been dedicated by use by either code, deed, or through a granting agency. So really like cemetery, source water protection plan, National Scenic Byways grant, there's something that's holding them in place that if the city wants to do something other than their designation with, it's a roadblock. It doesn't mean that things can't change. Everything I'm sure if the city wanted to do to make some sort of amendment, there are ways. It just makes it more difficult. And I want to note, please, that the city is in no way obligated to keep, develop, or dispose of a property because of its status on this page as dedicated for development or disposal. This is a living plan, and these recommendations can change at any time. So for those of you in the room, I did print out enough packets that have the memo, and they have these 2 pages in there because for me, it was useful to be able to review the plan in its entirety with these 2 pages in front of me to kind of see where they're dedicated or disposed, or, you know, whatever their status was. That way I could update them as I went, and I knew which ones needed to be updated. So I just wanted you guys to have that for ease to make notes if that's helpful. After this, we're going to get into individual properties, but does anybody have any questions so far?
Heidi, I don't have a question, but could you blow up the screen just a little bit, please?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. We good? Okay, I'm going to keep going. So we'll start with the residential district. All the properties are listed by their district. And there is an overview of each district prior to those properties in that area that just shows their permitted uses, conditional uses, and what's not permitted. And those can all be found in Title 18. So the first property is the storage yard, and I will just not to give you guys whiplash, but just mention that while we're going to kind of scroll through and look at each of these properties, I do want to note that in the memo, there are properties of special interest for consideration noted along with their corresponding page number, because these are the ones, as you saw, that were highlighted in the overview that really need more insight from council. They all garner interest or insight from you, but these are the ones that could really use a yay, nay, this is what we think. And city storage yard is one of them. It is also one that didn't have a great acquisition history. It is being used as temporary storage as the city yard across the street, which I don't know if you guys can see my arrow, but it's this kind of triangle piece, and then there's a rectangle piece beside it across the street. That's the storage yard, and I can show you a better map of that if anybody wants. But the highlighted piece was temporarily being used to store stuff from the storage yard while it was getting cleaned up. There's not a lot on it. Things on it can be easily moved, but it's just kind of a lot that the city has, and I don't have a lot of history on it. So for future considerations and recommendations, and you'll see this for all the lots, is kind of this format. That says this lot has the potential to serve as a heavy equipment storage site for public works and maintenance. It is located near the evacuation shelter and is in the tsunami inundation zone, but it's on the higher end, just to note. So it would be a pretty extreme tsunami if it was going to affect that area. And goal is part of that area, and under future considerations or goals to potentially have a zone change through ordinance to commercial residential. And I will note real quickly that you cannot spot zone, even as a municipality. You want to consider an area as a whole. So for that, it would be all of that orange and then this lot, if the city wanted to consider a zoning change in the future. And there is a procedure for that. Notice would be provided to the people in the area. It would be changed through ordinance. But that's, again, a goal for down the road. And it's noted there's no water, sewer, or no water access, but there is sewer. And that is, sorry, not to keep going up and down here. And that is because along this Winifred Avenue and shoreline, and this kind of a V shape there, the water main, from what I understand, was like Swiss cheese. And so it was disconnected on both sides on Winifred or Young area and shoreline. And so there isn't water through that neighborhood currently, and that would need to be a consideration if there was going to be any development. But there is sewer, and right now it is recommended as development, but if anybody has any other ideas, we'd love to hear them. No? Okay, we'll keep going. And if you want them to change, you let me know. So the Hill lot is also one under the properties of special consideration, and it's because it's been marked. This is the one right behind the school. And it was reconveyed through the Seldovia Native Association. And I don't have a date on there. I should update that. I'll make a note of that. But it does have water and sewer access because it's located on that Vista Avenue side. It's not viable for a cell tower. We know that they've tried that a few times. I've heard recently, and I'm hoping to obtain the information from a local in town, that the reason why the city acquired this site was that it used to be a naval navigational site. When they had the lot because it was the highest ground in the city. So they could use it strategically, I guess, is what I've heard, but I'm hoping to get that information. And right now it is marked as development or disposal, and it'll be, and later on in the memo as actually that recommendation for disposal. Should we be able to garner more information about it, and really just noting that because of its reconveyance and the way that it was transferred to the city, we should research that information a little more, because there is the potential that there's unknowns that would be a part of that consideration. But it has been noted to be discussed for potential disposal in the future. Any questions on this one? Okay, we'll keep going then. A lot to get through here. These lots are also noted for special consideration and potential disposal. There's two of them. You'll see on this page, it's the first lot, and then on the next page, it's going to be the lot right next to it. These are lots that were sold a few years ago, not a few years ago, but a while ago. And then this reverted back to the city in 2004 because they were not developed. So for lack of development, they reverted back to the city. Also, as mentioned earlier, they are noted as potential wetlands. So should the city or any individual want to develop these lots, they would potentially need that jurisdictional determination and then approval for permitting depending on what they want to do. Let's see, the other thing to note is they do not have access to water or sewer. This lot would be a little bit easier because there are mains running along Airport, but there are not mains running along Frank Raby. And you'll see this other lot is on, a little bit more on the inside of Frank Raby Drive. And also to note, because of their wetlands, there is a drainage issue to consider. The city does have two drainage ditches that are running along these lots, and should obtain a easement for that drainage and any potential utilities if utilities were placed on these lots. So just a little history on them. And they can be talked more for disposal if that meets the council's needs here in a minute. Any questions on those two? Okay. So then we're going to move through the Waterfront Commercial District. Not a lot of questions on this list in this district, but if anything comes up that you see that you have questions about, let me know. Again, there's an overview with the permitted uses, conditional uses, and not permitted. I'm going to run through it pretty quickly, so just shout out if something comes out. This first property here is located, as you can see in the yellow, down there on Ketchmack Street, or Shoreline and Willow Street, I should say. And it does contain the Susan Lake Culvert. It's also a snow push area for Shoreline Drive, for Cedar Street and Alder Street. And it's very, very tiny. It's 0.07. So for future considerations, we marked it as restricted reserves, views of slough, the manholes located on the parcel, and Susan Lake Culvert is located there. And so it's marked as dedicated. Next is the another very small lot that's located by Willow Street. It is called Lot 6A, Block 27. And we have marked it, it's been marked as restricted as part of the Willow Street row. There is a map in the back of the packet that shows a recent survey that was done on this lot, and you can see in that survey that part of the lot is actually Willow Street, and there's a fire hydrant located right in the middle of the lot. So some past history with it. It was offered as part of the development of Cedar Street Extension, which is located up here on where you see Cedar Street. If you keep going down between Cedar Street and Lake Street, is not actually platted road. The city and the citizens, there was a citizen initiative a few years ago to plat this as the road, as the rest of Cedar Street as existing. And the city did offer part of this property on Willow Street for part of the property on Cedar Street to become a row, so it would sit as is. So right now it's marked as dedicated, but of course this can always be a greater conversation. Easements in the future if people want to access it for parking, a park, just continue to maintain it. And I'm going to go to this map because that might help with the conversation a little bit more. And there is also city minutes in here concerning this lot and its history about maybe being, potentially being sold. The city did approve of an ordinance that would sell the lot, and then at a following meeting or a couple meetings later, they put it on hold. So there is some history there, and we can dive into it further if we need to, but this just shows that that road goes partway through the lot, and then there's a fire hydrant, and it's not a very big lot in the first place, so it doesn't leave a lot left that's usable. Any questions or discussion on this lot? Okay. Let's see here.
Yeah, Heidi,
Yes.
sorry, I guess I do have a comment. I think this would be one definitely that's going to warrant some discussion, but I fear it's going to have to wait until there's a potential new owner on the property that's for sale across the street right now.
Right.
Okay.
There's a lot of potential, not a lot of potential, but there is potential with the lot. So it is marked as dedicated now, and just because it's marked that way doesn't mean it can't be changed, or the city council can't make a different decision in the future. It just kind of gives us a guideline, a map that right now that's what it's being held for. So if that suits everybody's needs, we can just keep it like that. But if there was a proposal in the future, maybe it should state, now that I think of it, maybe it should state dedicated or development, so that if there was a proposal in the future to develop it or to use it as a street or parking or a park or whatever it is, it's open for that idea of development. Does that sound fair?
Well, yeah, I think right now it's kind of a touchy subject if it was brought up again.
Okay.
Anyway, so.
Okay. Well, we can change it to dedicated developmental or development, and then it kind of leaves the door open for that lot.
Yeah, I think that sounds good to me. I don't know. What do you think, Vivian?
Well, I think when we had our discussion, thanks for asking. I think when we had our discussion, that little bit of property was going to be one that would have to be dealt with when ownership of the property that you're discussing changes. And I think we thought of it as a bargaining chip and a working chip for the city to work with. So it's dedicated for whatever manner, but what we're thinking that it would be something that we would work with to get results that were some years ago, the property owners were looking for. So it's to be held for a bargaining chip and a working piece of property to help out those property owners for access.
Right.
Right,
Yes.
right.
So that's why I'm wondering if maybe it makes sense to include that dedicated / development, because it's not that the city is dedicated because the
Right.
city wants to hold it. It's just that this dedicated because the city wants to hold it till it can be used in a manner that the city deems, or the city council deems worthy. Right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree, definitely agree with that. It has to work for everyone concerned, if and when it's brought up again.
Okay. Okay, I can make that change. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the commercial district. And again, there are a few in the commercial district because this is the zone we were talking about, potentially having a zone change as a goal. But here's the overview of permitted uses, conditional uses, and not permitted. So you can see there's not a lot that's not permitted in commercial. But there are, for like homes, nightly rentals, bed and breakfast, hostels, gas station, those kind of entities need a conditional use. And that would change if that was commercial residential. So, and I apologize to note in the laydown that there was public comment provided, and there was a supplemental public comment also provided right prior to this meeting. And those comments did pertain to this area. So definitely make sure that you guys were able to see those. Rachel brought up the printed one and I emailed the one that came in at the last minute. But these lots have been discussed with the council and a few council members about potentially being disposed. They are commercial. They are located next to the city yard. And I do want to skip to this map real quick because it gave me a really great indicator of where the storage yard was. And I think it will help too in this discussion because I thought that the storage yard was more on the triangle piece. But if you look here on this map, you'll see that the storage yard really does expand more over onto this rectangular piece a little bit further up on Winifred, headed out of town. There's a little bit of it on the triangular piece, and it does go back. It looks on these two lots that the city owns behind the triangle piece, but a large chunk of it is on the lot just on the other side of that triangle piece. That makes sense. I feel like I'm saying triangle a lot. So if we go back to that. So these lots here are all about 0.13 of an acre or 0.14 of an acre. The last one, it's just a little bit bigger. It was designated as a big ditch near the city storage yard back here, but that may need to be adjusted because of where the storage yard is located. It might be more up on the triangle piece. And there is a snow push area near Young Street for Young Street and Spillum that the city uses. Future considerations and recommendations, part of it, if not all of it, is maybe classified as wetlands, but a developer would need a jurisdictional determination for that. The upper two lots appear to be more uplands than wetlands, and that's as they get closer to the storage yard or that triangle piece storage yard, they don't, according to the map, there seems to be less wetlands and more uplands. It's been discussed as potential housing development. I will note that there is water access because of Young Street, but there is not sewer access. So it's weird where we saw the lot across from the storage yard had no water but had sewer. These ones have water but no sewer. So that's just something to consider. According to our maps with our mains, commercial restrictions, it would need a conditional use for buildings of 4 or less dwelling units. And it's in that area marked as a goal for potential zoning change to commercial residential. Status is development disposal with a note that that there could be interest in reserving parcel 1920527 for snow removal. And that's that one right on the corner between Young Street and Anderson that the city uses kind of for snow push. It's really more on the Young Street side that and this platted row that's not really platted, but just that note was made.
Heidi, while you're right there right now, were
Yes.
you just, yeah, it's platted road behind, to the right of those lots then?
Yeah.
There is a platted road. And then all the lots to the right of there, are those all purchased? Or those, do you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's platted, but it's not existing. So if you don't see the black line shows the existing roadway. But if you'll see, there's kind of this white space that goes around
Okay, yeah.
these, what does it look like? 14 lots here. It's platted right away, but it is not existing.
And so the lots to the right of those few lots on, right off the road there, those are all in possession of ownership
Yes.
by individuals?
Yes.
Okay. And then the next section going towards Shoreline, those lots, I'm trying to remember when we were looking at the map, some of those belong to the city still.
Correct.
But
Yes.
because they're pretty much landlocked away from everything and anything, we decided not to put those up because of the issue of trying to get access to them. Is that
Well,
correct?
correct. So if we come down here, this triangle piece, it has a portion of the storage yard and it is uplands mostly, or it appears to be uplands mostly. And it did look like, potentially there's room for expansion because of that uplands. The storage yard does not sit fully on that lot. It has some improvements marked on it, container van, gravel driveway, because even KPB kind of marked that as the storage yard, but it does expand to the lot next to it. Previously had a shop, previously had underground fuel storage tanks, just something to keep on our minds. Future considerations, new shop, storing equipment so that it's in the higher tsunami inundation zone, better storage management efficiency, expand and develop the southern half of the lot. Only the top half is in use. Build overhead storage for heavy equipment. That was something that was on the city's capital project request. And again, it's in that zone for zone changing. And I'm just going through quickly because I wanted to talk about those lots that you mentioned. Here to the right of that lot are landlocked and were marked as dedicated along with that piece that we just talked about, because it is landlocked and the city storage yard spills onto it. So.
And City Clerk Eagle, I'm sure you've seen the time that we have, just a few minutes left, and I know you still have your memo. So
Yes.
Don't know what you want to prioritize, but we have
Yes.
our 6 o'clock meeting right around the corner.
Yes. Yep. We're getting there. This is just, these are part of the discussion right now. Because here we have the one that's highlighted in bold as marked as development, or not development, sorry, disposal, and the other one is dedicated. So that's where those lots sit in this district, unless anybody has any
Hey,
changes,
Heidi.
questions. Yes.
Okay, I see here on your page where it shows that those lots are wetland lots, correct?
They would need a jurisdictional determination to ensure that. But for instance, the lower lot that's highlighted here is mostly uplands and storage yard. The triangle piece was mostly uplands and storage yard, along with the two pieces behind it. And when I was talking to the Army Corps, she did say that, so this is mostly uplands. When I was talking to the Army Corps, she did mention that the upper two lots on this page appear to be more uplands than wetlands, but certainly the ones below it are potentially
Marshy.
wetland.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from what I understand of the area, it's wetland. And also, this is pure just verbal history. Did that also used to be part of a dump, like an old city dump site? Is that something that needs to be?
Not that I'm aware of. There is one that's further out the road, and I
Okay.
did hear, somebody did tell me that there was one that was up here, like on the left,
Okay,
going
that might be
like
what I'm thinking.
near our triangle lot here, going out of town, that there's one, was one in that area as well. But I haven't heard that about these pieces. So if somebody has more information on that, I would love to have it. Okay, does anybody have any questions or considerations or changes for what's been marked for the commercial zone? Okay, then we will move on, and the rest of it should go pretty quickly because for the most part, they're kind of self-explanatory, but that's not. to
I'm
mean
sorry,
things can't
I'm
change.
sorry, Heidi, we do have a hand raised.
Oh, okay.
Cindy, Mom?
Hi, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Cindy.
Oh, great. I know that the public comment is supposed to be at the end, but it feels like we're going to run out of time. And my public comment was very specific to the parcels that you were just talking about. So is it possible to comment on those right now?
Yeah, go ahead, Cindy.
Okay. Tanya Spurkland brought this area to my attention a couple of years ago, and it's a really nice place to ski. I explored it, not this winter so much, but in previous winters, and connecting through from the Susan Lake area and going along it's called Spillum Street on this map by Chunk's house, and then cutting in there, and I would ski and do a little loop that would take me up towards the edge of the slough and then come back and cut through the woods. And it's a really nice piece of natural area that then I started thinking, well, this would be great if you put some boardwalks in here because it's definitely wetland, to create an alternative to walking on the road to get out to outside beach. So I just wanted to throw that out there as potential for future trail and natural areas management. This would be really nice to keep it from being developed, especially considering that it's a wetland. So I know it's a much bigger discussion, but I just wanted to make sure that my comment got in there about this particular area. Thank you.
Thanks, Cindy. Heidi?
You guys ready?
Oh,
Any
yeah.
more-
Yeah.
No more comments?
No, I don't
Okay.
think so. Is there, Radzi?
There are no other comments at this time.
So moving past commercial, and those properties, some of those were marked as disposal and some were marked, or, recommended for disposal, and some were marked for as dedicated, the ones that were the storage yard. And we can discuss that further once we just make it through these last couple sections here. I'm just making a note real quick. Okay, so we're going into the industrial zone. Again, there was the uses. And a lot of these are dedicated or reserved for use. So we'll go through them pretty fast, but if you have any questions or changes, let me know. We have this lot here, which is located right next to the sewer lift station, and it contains the septic tank. It's listed for future consideration as a potential area for stabilization pond and a 2003 BSW water and sewer feasibility study, and that's included in the appendix. At least it should be here. And let's see here. City of Seldovia has a sewer outfall easement through this lot that runs to Inside Beach. So marked as dedicated. This next lot is actually part of the boat storage yard, but also contains the sewer lift station. It was noted under future considerations that the infrastructure needs updates and upkeep, mainly for that sewer lift, which could use a maintenance schedule. So marked as dedicated. Then we have the small boat yard, which is marked in code under 10-16-040 as long-term parking. And I just have these in yellow for a note for me that the KPB listed the cost of the lot versus the size of the lot. And I wasn't sure if it was reversed or not, but that's a note that I want internally that will disappear out of the plan, but I'll just keep internally. Half of the lots are unused because they're on the hill. There's a hill right above it that's not developed. And it could be reconfigured for long-term parking, outside management's a consideration, marketing, it for more use. It's marked as dedicated and developed, but developed as in that those options, outside management, marketing, how can the city use these lots more efficiently, and the long-term parking that in the code is on the bottom of the page. Next is the large boat yard built in 1993-94. Again, it has improvements, gravel driveway, container, van, future considerations, outside management, electricity utilization, marketing, and marked as dedicated and developed. This one, and maybe in the future we'll combine them, as also part of the large boat yard. It was done in sections when the plan was first developed, but really it's all together as one. And this one has the fence that runs through lot 9, block 3, and that's this last triangle or square rectangle lot here has a fence halfway through it. On the other side is the connexes that sit along the road, and then the northern side is the part of the boatyard, so it goes through those lots as well, marked as dedicated and developed. This one is Church Beach loading ramp, pretty self-explanatory. It's got the boat ramp, it's got the boat wash, could be used more efficient parking and launch ramp management. Could use code clarification for long-term parking, since long-term parking does tend to occur there, marked as dedicated. This lot is long-term leased by Sisbury, marked as dedicated. There is water and sewer access through the boat haul out building, which has water and sewer, but I will note real quickly that these lots along the front, along Main Street here, do not have water and sewer other than that boat wash building. But there is a main, it's just really deep and bedrock. So this one was made through ordinance, was made available for lease. I don't know if you guys saw it, it might have gone too quick, but that's the one next to Sisbury. It is currently available for lease through ordinance 1804. And I've heard through meetings with council that there could be interest in developing this area and the one next to it, golf cars, RV park, some kind of marine infrastructure. And it notes that water and sewer access is located through Deep Rock fill, and it needs to be cleaned up and maintained. This is an industrial building, value-added building, and city parking and storage is what it's being used for currently. Improvements, industrial building, gravel driveway. Future considerations, industrial value-added building is restricted for public use. That's through the grant. Waterfront development opportunities, again, water and sewer through Deep Rock. Lots need to be cleaned up. It's currently being used to store city equipment. And there has been interest from the city council and the city in the past to see that area developed. So it's marked as developed. Then we have city office and maintenance. It's marked as dedicated for now, but depending on goals and future changes, that could be adjusted in the future. It also, just real quick to note, has the distribution area for SFL located on the lot. So up here, this jog is like the propane tanks, distribution lines, and such. Right next to the SFL building is located on that lot. And let's see here. How quickly can we make it through this? This one is SFL. It's in a long-term lease. Got another 30+ years on that lease. So it's marked as dedicated, but maintenance and upkeep need to be considered for or scheduled for that building as we're becoming aware. These two are marked for development. They're the ones that AMH is marked as AMH as staging area. Future considerations, management policy for parking and storage, code clarification, potentially could be used for heavy equipment storage, leasing for storage, reserved for parking, as I said, by AMHS. And that takes us through industrial. Any questions on that one?
City Clerk Gagel, I'm going to say that we pause here at Tidelands just because we have 15 minutes until the next meeting. So that way we can see if there's any more comments from the public, or you could touch on any other items in the memo. And then we can just schedule another meeting to talk about the rest of the land use management plan.
Okay. I mean, yeah, if that's, yeah.
Okay, so then we'll close this portion of the work session. And we don't have any more comments from the public,
We
Radzi?
do have one hand at this point.
Okay, go ahead.
Tanya Spurkland.
Hello, yes, I would love to speak. And please tell me when my minutes are up. As a Seldovia resident, I'm opposed to the development and disposal of 4 areas. I do realize the city is in, dire need of revenue, but I think that these areas are so valuable that it's short-sighted to consider development or sale of them. As a resident, a naturalist, and an educator, I'm currently able to utilize all these areas for education and recreation, while they also improve the quality of our life here in Seldovia. Right now, I'm able to walk out my front door and view up to 30 species of local birds, songbirds, waterfowl, shorebirds, and seabirds on an enjoyable walk around town to outside beach. Our birds, wildlife, and ourselves depend upon these remaining wetlands. And you've mentioned wetlands a lot, and it's kind of sounded like, oh, but maybe we can make them not wetlands. And to me, that's just a travesty. Sorry. Wetlands are valuable because they clean the water, recharge water supplies, reduce flood risks, and provide fish and wildlife habitat. In addition, wetlands provide recreational opportunities, aesthetic benefits, are sites for research and education, and our commercial fisheries benefit. We need to protect our wetlands. Once they're developed or filled, we've lost them. Then the parcels that I'm interested in, I'm not going to delineate all of those, but Cindy alluded to the first ones that are by the city storage yard and Susan Lake. These are wetlands, or they contain wetlands with a creek that flows into the slough. This is a lovely natural area where we take Chinekna children during spring, summer, winter, and fall. We study the ecology of Susan Lake. We go birding, skiing, skating, and hiking. Once there was a boardwalk here, and this sorry, and the pavilion still stands. Combined with the other parcel on the west side of Susan Lake, this trail system could be saved. It would be a third of a mile long, connecting Susan Lake Pavilion to the slough near Shoreline Drive. And then along that corridor that we've already looked at would be a nice walk to Outside Beach. It is very near to Susan B. English School, and it is an amazing outdoor classroom. Please retain this parcel. Then another one I'm really concerned about is the Fish Creek Dam site. This spot has great recreation site potential if it's kept in its natural state or restored. For years, I've been taking our young people, a lot of your kids, to this site to study stream ecology and to excite them about the salmon parr that thrive there. This highly productive stream is fragile, complex, and in need of our understanding. Education is the key to responsible stewardship of our coastal
I'm
resources.
gonna, in just 1 minute.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Tanya?
Yep,
Yeah, we'll have to cut you short. And
that's okay.
we've got your comment on paper also.
Thank you for accepting it late.
So yes, thank you very much for your comment.
Okay.
Okay, then we're going to adjourn here at 5:50. And our next regular meeting is tonight at 6 o'clock. We'll see you then. Thank you.